I come from a poor family, yeah. We ain't never had a lot, yeah. But the Lord been good to us, yeah. Now we riding on the top, yeah. I come from a poor family, yeah.
Good morning, Richie.
Good morning, Ray.
We're back at it. Welcome to the boat, guys.
Back at it. We're on the boat. So good to be here. It was nice having a week off, and we're back at it. Please tune in every Wednesday. We'll be having the podcast for Builder of All Things. It's Theme Week. So.
Theme week. Because Richie, can you explain a little bit about Theme Week?
Yeah, so we're going to have the three questions that are revolved around the word foundation. So should be pretty fun.
Yeah, so every stream that we go on, guys, it's going to be foundation-based. So the questions, as you guys will hear, is going to be foundation-based.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty cool. We have three questions around it. Let's do it.
So let's get into our first stream, Richie. First stream is, what is the foundation of your faith?
Wow, foundation of our faith. Gosh, there's so many faiths out there. There's probably so many different foundations that are built, on. So I'll just share, I guess, my personal foundation and my faith and kind of what I build upon, it's a type of thing. So foundation is very important. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. It's what holds things up, right? There's foundations in, obviously in homes we build, there's foundations in even boats, when you build the skeleton of a boat and what kind of keeps it together. There's a foundation in relationships. There's a foundation in business on what kind of holds everything together. So however a foundation is built, first thing I would like to say is it needs to be strong to hold up everything, because definitely if a foundation gives, especially in a home,
could be a wreck.
Could be a wreck. Everything. It's like we don't even pay attention to the foundation because it's under the earth, right? We cover it even with flooring,
right.
So we build all these aesthetics on top of it: the covering, the roof, the cabinets in your kitchen, the furnitures in your house, and the beds and the lights and everything. Fixtures are going in, windows, doors. And this is like your life and functionality. And sometimes we forget what's under our feet.
Yeah.
The foundation. But if that thing starts going, like, what do you have? You don't have nothing. You don't have anything. Everything can just collapse at any time. So you got to make sure your foundation is strong. So very important foundation. I want to jump into a scripture, 1 Corinthians. This is Corinthians is a place, a people group, and there's this leader, Apollos, that's leading them, and Paul is a servant going around and sharing his faith and sharing Jesus to everybody, and Jesus was his foundation of what he was laying in the faith from the beginning, and then Apollos was the one that would take the foundation and build upon it. He was the guy building the house, the walls, the roof, make sure you understood what you're getting into, how to stay within the parameters of the faith and things like that.
Kind of give you a blueprint, huh, Paul?
Yeah, he did. So Paul is the foundation layer. So in 1 Corinthians 10, it says, according, actually we're going to jump a little bit before that in 6.
Okay.
Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to the labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. So what I like here is, like, I planted, Paul says, and Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So what's really cool about that is it shows that they're one, they're a team. As much as we're going to talk about how important the foundation is, it's also important that the rest of the house is put together as well. But once both are connected, it's really cool for me. It says, but God gave the growth. So you can build a house, you can have a great foundation, build a house, but if it's God who needs to be living up in there.
Hey, that's a good one.
Right? It's kind of like when you're thinking about a plant, because that's what they're using as plants, right? It's like one planted, one watered, but and I think about it, is like God is the process. Because if there's we could plant and we could water. It's like, imagine if I take a rock and then I poured soda on it. Would anything happen? No. So what are we planting and what are we using to water? But even using those correct things, the actual growth of it is from God. So just thinking about, like, without that process of growth, we are nothing. So just thinking about the Creator in a bigger aspect, just thinking of a process that he's part of, he's the bigger picture and meaning behind everything. So
as you're talking about that, Rich, I'm thinking about like when people water plants and, it takes some time to grow and whatnot, but I'm thinking in my head, like, well, that's life. It's bringing life to the plant, as it grows and you see it bloom. So I think of it in that way as well. So that was cool that you brought that.
Yeah. So like God is the life. If saying what, piggybacking off what you just said, God is the life in it, because we could just do this building thing all day, but the life part of it is God, which I think is really the biggest part of it, right? Why go through all these actions if there's no life? So,
exactly.
That's huge. But continuing down in the scripture, it says, according to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care on how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus. So I think it's really cool that Paul was referring to a foundation in the Bible as laying the essence of what holds everything together, but it's very important to build upon it as well. So what is the foundation of my faith? The foundation of my faith is Jesus. Just like Paul. But that to me ultimately is the defining line between probably other people's take on faith or how they view in their certain religions or certain things. My foundation is Jesus. So if there's any other foundation, that's not my faith. That's me. So, everything I build upon in my life, the foundation has to be Jesus. Jesus is the center point, is the foundation. He's the strength that holds me together, and my purpose. He's my why. He's everything. Why I'm doing everything and anything that I do and breathe. He's my lower point, holding me up and being my foundation. So how did that even start? Like who watered or who planted and who watered? Because it had to come from somewhere, right? And then becomes the growth. So I would love to start with my mother. My mother, but she had somebody who planted for her, which was my grandma Bonnie. So it's just cool seeing legacies poured down, and it's always like somebody planting that seed and then somebody building upon it. So the foundation, which is Jesus in my life, but the one who planted the seed for me, who basically helped laid the foundation. Like Paul said, he laid the foundation and Apollos built. So the one who laid the foundation of my faith would be my mother. So when I was 3 years old is when it started. She was she used to sing songs to me, with her guitar and rock me to sleep and I tell me about this Jesus character. So that's where it first planted the seed in my life. The foundation was laid right there, and everything in my life from there is built upon it. So if I were to share anything today, is if you don't, know what your faith is or what your foundation is in life, or if you have any purpose, you don't know what a purpose is or a meaning, I would love to just say, search, dig, knock, and you shall find. Or I think knock and the door will open, seek and you shall find. And I think, search Jesus. Who is this guy Jesus? Just kind of dig into him and ask questions about him. And I'm pretty sure he'll be an open book to lay a foundation for you, in your life.
Yeah, and I think, Richie, when you're searching for foundations, at least in my my upbringing and learning and knowing what foundation is good, for me, what was helpful was to keep an open mind to different sources, I guess, because I don't know, for myself, I always have to validate things, and so regardless if you do that or not, it just leads me back to Jesus. And so there are some fishy things out there, and so I guess I still have to be careful with things, what people say and what I read, but I always have to look from both sides of both perspectives, I guess, from two pieces of information, I guess, when laying foundation. And so that was something that kind of I always have to be aware of, right?
Yeah. And that's what holds the house together constantly, right? Is like we were talking about in the beginning, is the foundation. So whenever I get in a position in life or in business or in even sports growing up, I mean, there's a situation where things get rocky and the why gets questioned. I always look back at my foundation. So, a lot of us are so focused on, like we talked about before, the destination. God has a destination. So how we get there, we don't have to worry about. The hows are God's, right? Yeah. It's the why. And the foundation is the why, right? The rest of it is just building upon that why, right? And God just shows you the hows as you go. So a lot of the movement in the faith is basically trust. It's trusting that foundation. But after you start, you might be a little shaky at first when you're having Jesus as your boat, as your foundation of holding you in water, because without it, you'll drown. But, as you're in the boat and you see it's working and it's flowing and it's fruitful and God's taking care of the how, like, how am I going to, pay this, or how am I going to hire this person, or how am I going to, install this? I never did this before. All these hows God's going to give you the how. You just got to step out in faith and, do your part to study, to look it up, to find out things, to ask people. But all the hows God will take care of. And after a while, when you see they're taken care of, then you realize, wow, my foundation, my boat, this thing floats. Like it works. It works. And you start moving and it creates momentum. And then, your faith and your trust creates momentum, and you just keep moving and to enjoy the journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Right on, Richie. Thanks for that stream. We're going to head on to our next stream, guys. And it's going to be, what is your foundation as a business owner when building a business?
Yeah. So foundation, faith is Jesus. Talk about the foundation of the company, our company in particular, All Things New, residential construction company. Hey. What is our foundation? It's easy just to say Jesus, which is definitely in our personal life and our faith. But in the business, God gave us, we have a why. Why are we doing this? So our foundation, the thing that we rest on, is to establish a new standard of excellence. That is it. That's our foundation of our company. So everything and anything that we do, we look back at that and saying, hey, are we moving forward down this stream with this boat? This why. This is our why. Why are we engaging with homeowners? Why are we installing kitchen cabinets? Why are we putting processes in place to be a better business? Why are we why are we writing this in the contract? Why are we, promoting this? And all of it is to establish a new standard of excellence. And why are we doing that? Why is that even our why? Is, as we talk about a lot of construction companies here on the island, and there's a good handful of them that, whether they're bullying, scamming, stealing, or, punctuality or unprofessionalism being displayed to different degrees. There's just a low standard in our industry here on the island. And I don't know how it is on all the industries across the nation, but when you look at your industry or whatever you're in, whatever your career is, and you look at the culture, you look at the standard, God always sets the bar to be excellent in everything that we do. And so to be a light, right, to people, we want to be able to set that bar high, and especially when the culture is tainted and toxic. And the construction culture here locally has its toxic places. There are some healthy companies out there, very few, which is the sad part. So really going into this as All Things New is we want to establish a new standard of excellence. And what is establish? What does that word mean? It means to set up a firm, or it means to set up on a firm or permanent basis. So what that means is, if we want to establish a new standard of excellence, we have to set ourselves up on a firm basis.
Mm-hmm.
So what is our firm basis? And our firm basis is that of our faith, which is the character of God. Show up on time. Do not lie. Do not steal. Integrity
Mm-hmm.
in everything you do. Work hard. Honor your time. Everything that you install it the best way you know how, right? So just that, and that is our basis, and that's our foundation. We're setting it on is how can we step up in everything we do, everything we do. Like there is no holding back. It's kind of like a being competitive against the culture of ourselves, of what the culture here is in the construction world. There is a just show up and go home, but we don't want to have that. We want to have purpose when we work. When we show up, we want to have a purpose from 7 to 3:30, not just clock in, clock out. We want to say, hey, we're here and we're ready to step up next level in construction. And eventually we're hoping that will shine a light to other companies. You know, ideally, why would we want to establish this new standard of excellence? It is great to establish it for the sense of serving the homeowner, but also to establish it to be a lampstand so the rest of the construction companies, subcontractors, or other construction businesses or locally have a light to look to. And I say a light to see, to have vision of what that can look like, because a lot of them maybe just don't know what it looks like. They're like, all they know is from the past contractors or where they learned or where they went to work for a company. Only experience I've had is with a company, you know, that I worked with called Summit Construction. Not their fault, but they had typical construction culture here locally that was tainted or toxic. Even though they had their excellent installers, it was still a clock in and clock out type of job. But to have now to establish a new standard of excellence, how can we step up everything to the next level to show people, right, to how to operate in business? So now, looking at, our online accountability, seeing Yelp reviews when people are saying, or being able to see, oh, wait a minute, these guys are award winning or fastest growing company. All these accolades or awards don't really mean anything except for to show you that, when you do it this way, there is fruit, right? You don't have to think about, I've gotten to some deep conversations with workers saying, they're the old way, the way they're used to doing it is, this is the way, this is the successful way. But now we can show them, no, look, if you are honoring your time and showing up, and if you are being punctual, if you are having integrity, even into your installation levels, if you are doing these things, God, this is fruitful as well. Yeah, you may think this is fruitful, but then you have no purpose. But ours is our way, the way God is establishing this new standard of excellence is showing other contractors that it can be successful and fruitful as well. And just measuring what is success, it's not about these little accolades that ATN and think we're gracious and we're thankful that we're getting these opportunities and platforms, but it's really and more so is like, man, this is really adding to the light of what? Glorifying what God is doing, and God being the foundation of ATN and all things new. And that's where all things new means, as we talked about before. All things new is setting a new way of doing things. A way, we're injecting ourselves into a culture to lay a new foundation, and, we're hoping that other companies, and we see them, especially subcontractors, because they're working with us. They're like, man, what are y'all doing? That you guys are doing something different and something right. Like how in the heck are you guys having a podcast, a TV show? You have like 3 new houses being built, 10 other projects over here. You're like all over we're not all over the place. We're just on the boat. Trusting God, right? And the thing is like God, it's like he already has your destination pictured out. So when he looks at you, it's like looking at a mirror. You're like himself. So it's nothing I have to worry about. He already knows we can do it and we can fulfill the purpose that's ahead of us. It's just a matter of, again, jumping back on that trust train and knowing God can take care of you from there. So foundation in business for ATN, all things new, has always been to establish a new standard of excellence to every degree and everything we're doing. Does that mean we're perfect? Heck no. But we also don't mind the failures, because the failures are a good time to sit down and say, hey, where did we make our mistake? I knocked on the door late before for an in-home consultation, and homeowner heard their feedback, and I came back to my truck and I evaluate, okay, I learned a lot about how that affected that homeowner, even though I had a honest reason why I was late, but pushing constantly for the 100% mark in punctuality, pushing constantly to be the best, not the best like a basketball player, and I'm very skilled is great, capacity is great, but how can I be the best professionally, and constantly honor God behind the scenes when nobody's looking? These kind of things is just where it gets really deep, and you have to be honest with yourself. That's the hardest part, is like when nobody's looking, I mean, I could do what I want in my head. But if I really have a lens of I'm working with God, you're not alone. It's like, when you are alone in the people world, you're with God working. So just knowing that you can honor him and be there for him, even in the back end. So it's a lot of work and a lot of diligence involved. You can't be lazy in the world of trying to push for establishing a new standard of excellence. So excellence is huge. That is our foundation, is trying to be a light to other companies, to show them especially this podcast, very important to dig in and see the deeper dive on our faith and our foundation in our company and how we pursue everything we do. Real quick,
Richie, when you're setting up a new foundation, when you're setting a new excellence, right? It sounds daunting. It sounds like a daunting task, because it's so. If you think about it, there's a lot of things you need to change, or actually just kind of remove and start brand new, right? How does that? When you think about it that way, Richie, what kind of things, how do you go about that in setting a new excellence? Because there's so many things to make brand new, but how do you tackle that?
Well, it's God's stream, right? So it's like when he gives us a task, it's not how, it's more of keeping the foundation of why. So when I say it's God's stream, it's like Noah, for a good example. Noah was told to build a boat. But where is the destination of this? He just obeyed. He just did it. And, God just gave him instructions and just did it. So, God gives us tons of instructions. And some of them don't make sense. But we don't need to see the destination. We just got to understand that it's God's stream, and I'm just going to take care of this task. From the small to the big. Building a boat, that's a big task. But he was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And he even did it and got ridiculed, right? Like, why are you building a boat?
Can you imagine that? People people think of you as crazy bad, but he had trust.
So Noah wasn't crippled by the how. Right. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to, how are you going to even build a boat? He wasn't crippled by that, because he knew who he was building it with and for. And so he got the instructions. He did it. God, because like I said, God looks at you, he sees a mirror. So when he gives instructions, he already knows
to do it.
He already knows what's going to happen. We're an image of him. You know what I'm saying? So when he speaks to you to do something, or if a task comes your way, you just got to do it. And know that he's got the stream.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. All right, let's head into our third stream, Richie. We're talking about some materials here. What are the metal components in concrete?
So we're dipping into some construction talk here. So again, talking about foundation. There's a different types of foundations, but typically when we start building on the earth, concrete is very popular, right? Because it's one of the strongest foundations, So pouring concrete specifically for a house, the question is what are these metal components thrown in it? Why can't we just pour concrete? And what is concrete? Concrete is a mixture of sand and aggregate and different things that kind of react with water, and it becomes hard and strong. And concrete is great when it's all poured together, but you need metal structural components inside of it, so it doesn't, because the earth shifts and concrete cures. So when I say cure, what that means is as soon as you put these components together, water is added, it activates, and it starts getting harder, right? Yeah. So when you mix concrete with water and it starts mixing and all the other components, from there's a curing process, which means cure is like getting harder and harder and harder. So the curing process never ends, which I think is pretty cool. So if you were to like look at a graph, the first 3 days, it's very like super high, kick up of strength. Okay. The per square inch weight that it can handle, it goes almost to 3,000 pounds, within 2 or 3 days. But then there's just that kind of levels off, and then just slowly, gradually, constantly, always gets harder and harder and harder and harder and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and it just keeps going.
Interesting.
Yeah. So concrete is super cool, but because of that, there's the tendency with earth movement as well that concrete can crack. It can crack, and once it cracks, you're losing a strong foundation because things are separating. Cracks can really grow, and so what helps hold concrete together is these metal components. And one famous one is called rebar. Rebar is like a It's like a circled bar, with the certain thicknesses that go into the concrete, and those are specifically spaced and sized to basically almost like a web or a checker box look that can hold the concrete together so it doesn't crack. But there's even rules with that, rule of thumb is like keeping rebar or metal components at least 3 inches away from the surface, because that can cause the concrete to crack on its own just for having metal in it. And it's supposed to be holding it together, but it can also cause the cracking as well. So has to be, inside the concrete properly and spread properly. But what the point of it is it holds the concrete together. So I like to say that Jesus is my rebar. Jesus is my rebar. He's what holds me together. So, if the earth shifts or certain things happen, my foundation won't crack. He's the one that holds everything together. And then you have to have the right version or perspective of Jesus, because Jesus, the name Jesus is just like a cup. Right? Yeah. Words are like cups. Names are like cups. But what you put in it.
Right.
Some good coffee. Yeah. What you put in it is the substance of that name. So, what kind of metal or what kind of size rebar and how you spread it perfectly within your foundation is important as well. So, I like how rebar has to be embedded away from the surface. You can't have a surface Jesus. You got to have a deeply rooted, embedded Jesus in your faith. So what I'm trying to say is, rebar is one of those metal components, but also there's wire mesh, which is pretty cool because, if you have a driveway, typical thickness for driveway concrete is about 4 inches. So how are you going to keep rebar away from 4 inches? Or, when a 3 inch
from the surface
is a rule of thumb from the surface. So they have what's called a wire mesh, which is a really thin wire that's spread through a driveway. And it's kind of that, gives it that perfect depth so there's no crack, but still holds everything together. So these metal structural component parts in concrete are very important. You can't just pour concrete. So if you're out there going to go work on your sidewalk, as a homeowner, and you're going to take some of those concrete bags from Home Depot and mix them with some water, just start pouring them in there. Don't forget your rebar.
Don't forget the wire mesh or the rebar, guys.
Yeah, you got to get that rebar in there, or that wire mesh. So do a little research. But the metal components in concrete are super important. It's what holds the foundation together so it doesn't crack. So foundation is not just the concrete. It's also the rebar or the metal components.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I went on a job site when they're pouring concrete, Rich, I saw I'm pretty sure it was a wire mesh, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that's for. Now I know.
yeah, that's it. It's to hold it all together. So.
Yeah, and I also didn't know that the concrete will gradually strengthen. I was like, oh, there's some chemical things happening in there.
Yeah, it keeps getting stronger, and that's always cool to know. Just your house constantly gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah. Guys, we're stoked to be back on the boat.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening in, guys. Next week, Richie, we're gonna continue our theme.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Let's try it out. See what's next.
Yeah. So, guys, once again, thanks for joining us, and we're glad you're here. Yeah. Have a good Wednesday, guys. Have a good Wednesday, guys.
Yeah, they will have a good Wednesday.
They will have a good Wednesday.
We believe that.
I come from a poor family, yeah, yeah.